Guess called it glamour. Chanel called it destiny. The world called her iconic. Every generation of fashion finds its muse, but sometimes the muse becomes the measure. She defined for the next decades what real beauty looked like. Before influencers, before filters, there was one woman whose face became the blueprint. Claudia Schiffer never had to invent herself. She simply appeared, and the world rearranged around her. The camera met her before her voice did. A guest billboard on Sunset Boulevard, black and white, denim and light. She wasn't smiling. She didn't need to. Her face was pure geometry, flawless symmetry wrapped in soft composure, an impossible mix of innocence and control. The world slowed down. For a second, beauty looked like order. 16 years old, from Rheinberg, a quiet German town far from fashion's chaos, barely speaking English, and suddenly on every magazine wall. She didn't posture or push. She understood instinctively that elegance isn't movement, it's proportion. No scandal, no hunger for fame, just precision. Her beauty looked disciplined. Her youth felt timeless.
It was this one time when I was allowed a special treat to go to the big city with all my friends, literally the very first time. This French agent from Paris came up to me and said, "You should be a model," and I just thought that, yeah, he must be joking, can't be serious, there's no way I can be a model. And that's how everything started.
The 90s were loud, color, chaos, provocation. And there she was, composed and immaculate. While others tried to shock, Claudia made serenity magnetic.
During the 90s, it's just a crazy time. It was very exciting, but we didn't really know what was going on around us. It was only much later in retrospect that you realized what a special time it was.
In 1989, Ellen von Unwerth photographed her for Guess jeans. The campaign was black and white, sensual without being loud, and it changed everything. Store sales doubled, the images covered American highways, and Claudia's face turned billboards into landmarks. Guess sold jeans, yes, but what people bought was her perfection. That campaign didn't just sell fashion, it sold an aesthetic ideal. It was iconic. For most, one image like that would define a career. For Claudia, it was only the first chapter of being iconic.
My earliest fashion memory is in 1987 when I was asked to come to Paris for a fashion shoot for French Elle magazine. I was still in high school and arrived in Paris, and although I had French and English for a long time in school, didn't understand a word anyone was saying in the studio.
Her calm made people curious, and curiosity builds myths. When the press called her the next Brigitte Bardot, she once said, "I never tried to be Bardot." That quiet sentence tells you everything. She never corrected the story, she transcended it, and yet, the label stuck, the echo the world wanted. Because while Bardot was an icon of her era, Claudia outlived hers. Decades later, Bardot faded into nostalgia. Claudia remained as the reference, the clearer, cleaner definition of glamour. She didn't dethrone Bardot, she made her irrelevant with the ease of someone who never needed to compete. For another woman, being mistaken for Bardot would have been the pinnacle. For Claudia, it was only the prelude. Paris, 1990. Backstage at Chanel. Pins clicked, fabric hissed, the air smelled of starch and perfume. Karl Lagerfeld stood there, watching a 19-year-old walk. "She has the face," he said. And with that, he placed her inside fashion's inner temple.
Karl Lagerfeld was sort of my magic dust. I was a very shy girl, and he transformed me from this shy girl into a supermodel. And I remember when I first met him, he somehow thought there was something special about me and said, "You know what, I'd like you immediately to start tomorrow. You gotta go to Deauville, and we're gonna shoot the Chanel campaign."
Karl had first seen her in the Guess campaign, that image everyone was talking about, and said quietly to his team, "That's what I've been looking for." He didn't just see a pretty girl. He saw precision, professionalism, the kind of discipline only couture understands. She was never late, never careless, never unprepared. Her composure became part of his aesthetic. It could have swallowed her that stage, but it didn't. She didn't float like the others. She anchored.
Où elle était morte, trac, où elle a fait une sensation que les autres avaient l'air saupoudrés de poussière et de grisaille, hein, où elle a vraiment littéralement éclaté et elle est devenue une star vraiment dans la minute qui suit. Parce qu'au fait, son charme venait de ses défauts. Les gens disaient, elle ne sait pas marcher.
Where most models chase drama, Claudia delivered balance. Karl understood what she embodied. discipline disguised as grace. He saw in her not a girl to mold, but a structure to build around, and she, in turn, trusted his order. Their connection wasn't romantic, it was architectural. He built lines, she gave them meaning.
And as the day went on, I warmed up a little bit more. We then spoke German together and realized that we had a lot of things in common and lots of energy, and we both didn't drink, we didn't do anything naughty. At 3 o'clock in the morning, we were still up and running and full of energy, and everyone else was getting very tired. And he said to me, "Yeah, you're just like me." You know, very German, Teutonic and disciplined. It was that sort of bonding moment that started our long relationship together.
"You're just like me," Karl told her once. Very German, disciplined. It became one of fashion's most productive partnerships, a decade-long collaboration that defined both their legacies. Under Lagerfeld, Claudia didn't just work for Chanel. She became its face, its reflection, its proof that heritage could look new again. In Karl's legacy, her image endures, the bridge between his vision and what Chanel remembers itself to be. She was iconic once again. Then came the years when fashion wanted more than faces. It wanted stories, and Claudia became one. By the mid-90s, David Copperfield wasn't just a magician. He was one of the most famous entertainers on the planet. Stadium tours, primetime television, global recognition. He made the Statue of Liberty disappear, and for a moment, the world watched him with the same awe it reserved for her. 1994, The Magician and the Supermodel, David Copperfield. The tabloids wrote it like a fairy tale. Illusion meets perfection. But if you look closer, it was another study in Claudia's art of control. He made things vanish. She made attention vanish. At airports and lobbies, flashes went off like storms, and she just kept walking. Not hiding, not performing, just being. The trick wasn't the relationship. It was how she managed to stay real while becoming untouchable. She turned fascination into privacy. She let mystery work for her, the same way she once let light. When it ended, she didn't explain. And because she didn't explain, the myth stayed intact. That was her real magic. Others tried to sustain relevance by talking. Claudia did it by withholding. Even her illusions became iconic. He vanished from culture. She didn't. That's the difference between fame and iconography. By the late 90s, fashion was chaos. Supermodels weren't just faces anymore. They were movements. Naomi, Cindy, Linda, Christy. A pantheon of spectacle. But Claudia was different. She didn't need to reinvent herself every season. Her presence was the brand. At Versace, she moved like a metronome in a storm. Steady, deliberate, flawless. At Valentino, she made luxury look effortless. At Chanel, she didn't wear the clothes. They aligned themselves to her. She could sell opulence by standing still. That was her paradox. The quieter she became, the louder her influence grew. Every photograph of her in those years carried the same tension. Softness built from discipline. Behind the calm was calculation, not vanity. She knew exactly when to appear, when to withdraw, and when to let the world miss her. That rhythm made her eternal.
Well, over the years, I've been now for over 20 years in the fashion industry. You really understand, what you like, what you want, what you think is maybe missing that you were always looking for, and you understand what quality stands for.
By 1997, she had appeared on more than 1,000 magazine covers. In 2004, the Guinness World Records officially named her the most photographed model in history, a title no one has since surpassed. She wasn't just visible, she was omnipresent. While others faded, she became the reference point. Her face defined the decade's idea of beauty. Symmetrical, composed, perfect. Other models came and went. Claudia stayed. That's what iconic means. Not a moment, but a measurement. In 1997, she became a UNICEF ambassador, a rare public act from someone who usually stayed silent, proof that even her generosity came with purpose and restraint.
And so here I am, I called UNICEF and I said, could we work together? I'd like to help. I've been so fortunate in my life.
In 2002, she married British film director Matthew Vaughn. Quietly, far from paparazzi lenses. No spectacle, no scandal, just a new frame, one she controlled completely. When the lights dimmed on the supermodel era, Claudia didn't chase the next spotlight. She built her own horizon.
This is the house we live in and work in. Me and my husband Matthew, our 3 children. And then we've got also a German Shepherd, Rollo, and a cat called Chip. What's so special here are these very big glass windows. They have this most amazing view. We're in the middle of nowhere pretty much, countryside all around, and you can see like a fox going by every day.
Her runway became an English estate under soft rain. Her stage a life designed on her terms. Children, art, design, order, all arranged like pages in a book she finally got to write herself.
Guess Jeans was incredible because number 1, I never wanted to become a model, and number 2, I definitely didn't want to become famous either. That was not one of my goals or dreams ever.
She never turned nostalgia into business. She turned it into design. Her name now lives on labels. Claudia Schiffer cashmere, eyewear, knitwear, each one a quiet extension of her taste.
All of these pieces are exactly what I would wear and what I would want in my everyday life. Bringing my kids to school, going to work, going to a meeting.
She curates her own image as carefully as she once walked a runway. Even her art collection reflects it. Clean lines, timeless form, control through beauty. In 2021, her exhibition Fashion Icons at the Kunstpalast Düsseldorf proved it once more. She's not a memory. She's a curator of what lasts. She placed her own portraits beside those of other legends, not to compete, but to remind the world what timeless actually looks like. She didn't chase legacy, she built it. And while no one speaks of Copperfield or Brigitte Bardot anymore, Claudia Schiffer remains the image. Fashion still can't improve on. So after all these years, is she still iconic?